Good afternoon. My name is Tom Jones, and I'm the Executive Director of the Faith Inclusion Network. And I want to welcome you today to a very special panel, an interfaith panel of special needs parents. August is the month of Special Needs Parents Appreciation, and I think every month should be a month of appreciation because special needs parents are really deal with a lot of challenges every day, and it takes an extraordinary amount of effort and dignity and looking for solutions constantly. So. Special needs parents have a special place in my heart. And so I'm excited to be able to recognize parents and their journey and what that entails for them. Today, we're very glad to have an interfaith panel, and we have people from different faiths who are parents and have that shared experience of raising someone with a disability. And they'll be speaking to us from their different faiths, sharing their own experience, but also sharing their particular faith and how it impacts their lives. So today, we're very honored to have Carmen Chiappetta. Carmen has over 20 years of teaching experience from the preschool to the college level, and she currently teaches Spanish part-time at St. Agnes School in Arlington. Throughout her career, she has been involved with program development and curriculum design. And since the birth of her son, Alex, who has Down syndrome, she has been involved with advancing inclusive education at the Catholic schools. Carmen has a doctorate from the University of Miami and a BA from Villanova University. She lives with her husband and 5 children in Northern Virginia. Welcome, Carmen. Glad you're with us today. A return presenter today is Baljit Guman. Baljit is an autism and neurodiversity advocate. Baljit is a father to an autistic daughter. He is founder of Seeks for Autism. For the last decade, Baljit has worked to create awareness around autism and initiated conversations with communities across Canada and specifically in Ontario. Baljit's work revolves around autism awareness and advocacy by engaging caregivers into this conversation through his school speaking engagements, collaborating with other nonprofits, universities, and hospitals. Baljit has spoken to us in our previous webinar about autism and the Eastern religions. Great to have you back, Baljit, and thank you for being with us today. And next we have Gabrielle Kaplan Mayer, who is an author and educator and disability advocate. She's currently the director of virtual content and programs at Ritual Well, an initiative of Reconstructing Judaism, which is a resource for Jewish creativity, spiritual growth, and learning. She was formerly the chief program officer at Jewish Learning Venture in Greater Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She's also on the education staff at Congregation Mishkan Shalom, where she's been a member for 25 years. Gabrielle is the proud recipient of the 2022 Covenant Award and currently edits the Jewish Disability Inclusion News. One other person that could not be here today was Juhi Tahir. And Juhi had a death in the family, and so she was not able to attend this webinar, but she helped in the planning, and we certainly will miss her and her contributions. And now I want to turn this over to Rebecca Wolf. Rebecca is the Faith Inclusion Network Interfaith Engagement and Faith Inclusion Coordinator. She's been with Faith Inclusion Network for about 4 years now and has been very instrumental in planning and recruiting speakers for interfaith webinars and interfaith discussions. So, Rebecca, glad to have you with us to lead this discussion, and I'll turn it over to you now.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks to all of our speakers. And I know we already introduced you a bit, but I'd like to hear a little more from each of you about um, your your kids, and also about your, religious or spiritual involvement. Can you tell us, what faith are you from, and also what's your personal connection, related to your kids with special needs? Oh, and I should say, since we have quite a few panelists, I'll try to give each person a few minutes to talk, but I want to be mindful of the time so that we can get to a whole range of topics. So just to keep that in mind. Gabby, would you like to start?
I'm happy to. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you. It's so beautiful to hear my panelist bio and so inspiring. Just all the work that can happen across faiths and how we can work together. I'm Jewish, as you got from Tom's intro of me, and the publication I edit, the Jewish Disability Inclusion News, it's on Substack. If you just type that into your Google, you can subscribe because we have lots of info for people, across disability, accessibility. I'm the mom of two amazing young adults. It's kind of wild to say that. My older child, George, is 23 and a half. And um, as with many parents of a child with profound autism, honestly, the beginning of my journey into parenting was seemed pretty typical. And then, in those later, like between 2 and 3, it became clear that something was different developmentally when George didn't speak and frustration and other things. And so, very briefly, I'm going to say his diagnoses, but it's like, feels really clinical to do that. And, George, in our Jewish tradition, honestly, the biggest foundation of our tradition is a Hebrew phrase, B'Tselem Elohim, which comes from the very beginning of the book of Genesis, which is that humans are created in the divine image. And in our Jewish faith, we see that each human contains the divine image. So George has profound autism. He has an intellectual disability. He has bipolar disorder. He's got a lot of stuff. And like, if you met and engaged with him, as I'm sure with many of your children, his soul shines through. It's just really beautiful to be with him. So, yeah, I mean, he changed my life, as you can imagine. Very, humbling parenting experience. But number two, a younger child who's also like totally amazing in his own right and leading me. My younger child, Jeremy, is a transgender male. He has a diagnosis on the autism spectrum. He's very smart, and his struggles are mostly in like social communication challenges. There is a lot of overlap. There's a lot of research being done between trans people and people who are neurodivergent. So I'm just learning all about that, which is its own journey, and it's a very tender time in the United States because there's a lot of threat to disability justice and to the things we need for our children. And there's a lot of hatred and ugliness being put at the trans community. So I feel like I'm a mother lion. That's my image, and I'm gonna make sure as long as I'm on the earth that my children are safe. Thank you.
Carmen, would you like to? Thank you for sharing, Gabby. And I didn't realize you had two kids as well. Um, Carmen, would you like to share a
Sure.
little?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And Gabrielle, thank you for sharing. It's beautiful to hear about your tradition and how you respond as a mother, because I feel like, I'm Catholic and we have something very similar in how we view each individual. We're told that everybody has the image and likeness of God. And that doesn't mean when you are neurotypical, you have the image and likeness of God. And it doesn't mean when you are fully functional that you have the image and likeness of God. It is that you always have the image and likeness of God, and you are showing him every day in your humanness, and your humanity is what bears that image. So I take that was something I really held on to as I, got to know my son. We had an at birth diagnosis of Down syndrome. So Alex is my youngest of five, and he is, as you described, the light of my life. I mean, I think I went on and on to a colleague this morning about how wonderful he is, to the point that I was like, right, you're being that mom. Ask about her kids. That's enough. Um, but it's just, he's the youngest of five. And I really just thought that I had my life mapped out. I knew I was having a boy. I had always gotten a surprise gender reveal, at birth, and I didn't want any surprises this time. This time around with kid number five, I didn't want any surprises. And in that delivery room, when they gave me the baby, I knew the second I laid eyes on him, I said, "Oh, you have Down syndrome. This is a big surprise, a very big surprise." And it changed my life, and I'm so grateful for that change, because I don't think I ever would have chosen it. I don't think I would have said that's the one I want. But that's the one I got. And I'm so grateful that I did, because he is just changed my life in so many ways, and really helped me see my faith, in a different way, right? I had a lot of things that I didn't realize I was thinking until I had my son, and had to wrestle with, well, what does it mean to image God? What does it mean to be loved as I am? So it's really been beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. And Baljeet, would you like to share a bit as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me again here. It's always great to come here and see what other people have to say and share my thoughts as well. So I'm a Sikh. I live near Toronto in Canada. Been here for last 37 years, and originally from Punjab, India, which is northwestern part of India, and that's where the faith originates from about 500 plus years ago. So I have two daughters, and the younger one is autistic. She just turned 19. We are, going through those transitions and paperwork for adulthood. So we just finished that. We started this nonprofit organization in 2019. Even though I have been involved in autism awareness work at the school level, I think around maybe 2013, 2014, around that. And what really brought us out was being from a minority group, being from a South Asian group, where disabilities, neurodiversity, these kind of topics are not discussed openly. In fact, the parents and the families would hide them. And this is not openly discussed. And we went through the same process when our daughter got diagnosed, and we weren't sure how to proceed with this. What does it mean for us raising a young girl in a community which may not be that accepting of it? And there were no support groups in the community. There was no such talk about mental health or autism at that time. And this is 19, 17, 18 years ago. We kind of, I can say that we suffered, my wife and myself, in silence, trying to hide as well. But at one point we decided, hey, you know what? There must be other parents out there in our community with the daughters and sons who are autistic. We can't be the only one. And that's when we started to talk about it. We kind of launched a social media campaign. We just didn't know what to do, so we said all we know is Facebook, so let's start from there. And we started to share the diagnosis with the family and friends, and to our surprise, it was met with a lot of acceptance, a lot of help. People were understanding. It almost seemed that they were waiting for somebody to lead, somebody to talk about it publicly. So, we ended up doing a lot of media coverage in mainstream media in Canada, in the ethnic media. and ended up in Huffington Post writing an editorial about it, and that really brought us out. And that was we were only in a year in with the nonprofit. And it's a family-driven, very small nonprofit, but I think we have done some good work in last 7, 8 years. A lot of work with the school district boards here in the region. Queen's University in Ontario. We collaborated with them. We ended up doing first Sikh-focused autism research in Canada. We just got published in a journal last June, this June actually. So that was a big, huge accomplishment for us. That laid groundwork for us to go forward. We were able to identify the gaps in the community, and what we are doing now is addressing those top 5 gaps. And hopefully the next few years, that's what we will be working on. Um, you know, I'm not an Orthodox Sikh, but in my life, whenever you're down, you don't know how to proceed, I always go back to the roots. And in our family, in our culture, you're brought up with the basic values of Sikhism, which is seva, which means you're giving back to the community surface, and then you don't accept anything back for it. Seva and Chardi Kala concept. The Chardi Kala is to stay in high spirits. And how do you stay in high spirits? You give back to community, you do volunteer work. And that's how we named the organization, Six for Autism, because the inspiration came from the faith. And we are here now.
Well, Baljit, we'll definitely like to share more about your initiatives and also your new research.
Yep,
Maybe you can provide a link to that either now or later.
yep, yep, for sure.
I'm glad you mentioned about the faith aspect, since I'd like to sort of discuss that as a topic about number one, like how has your faith been a part of your family life? And then also, how has being part of your faith community been either welcoming or challenging? If you could talk about, what's the role of religion and faith in your family, and have your faith communities been inclusive, or have they been, um, some kinds of barriers or challenging situations that you met?
Well, I can jump in. I'm like so inspired by my panelists here. Just both so incredible what can happen to us. Carmen, when you said like I wouldn't have chosen this, that is such a tough faith question. When you said, because I also wrestle with that one, and I think I also wouldn't have said, like, I've had other really hard things in my own life. I have type 1 diabetes. I'm a cancer survivor. So I've had hard things. And I think that, like, wow, this idea that in our human experience, we have things that we didn't necessarily choose. And my faith, I guess, is in how I respond. And also the idea of this beautiful idea and this tradition of giving back is how we keep our spirits up. It's the same. I think all religions just have the same core, of be kind and lift each other up. We have the same. And so I've really tried to sort of step in and help our Jewish community to put some things in place. And luckily, when George was little, I was working in the field of Jewish education, but I knew there were things supporting families with disabilities. I just didn't have my eyes open to it, my antennas. So once I realized, like the traditional education system will not exactly work for my kid. At the synagogue where I've been for a long time, I created a family-based program, and that's sort of how I move forward. in a lot of my work in the community. And I think what I would say um, about, the comments in the chat and that are shared of like our community, it's a stigma in our community. I think in the Jewish community, it's like, yes, and there's been a lot of energy, there's been a lot of efforts to support people with disabilities. And one of the generational trauma responses of Jewish people is to succeed academically. And I think there are a lot of other cultures where that's true. And there's only a Jewish religion and a Jewish people and Jewish survival, especially after the Holocaust. And my grandfather's a Holocaust refugee. He lost his whole family in Germany. Is that, you must have intellectual power in order to survive. And so when there are children then who have an intellectual disability, I think it comes from that painful place of, you know. So yeah, I mean my life is totally different than it was before my kids, and day by day is my faith.
And I would just build off of that, I found in the same time like a lot of solace in my faith. And like there's a lot in, I think, in every religious tradition that kind of tells you you're more than just your intellect, you're more than just your achievements, right? And this is another thing that I've been thinking about a lot is like independence versus interdependence, right? We are all interdependent. And I feel like this is something that has really come more to the fore with technology and AI, right? I mean, right now, I feel like our families that have experienced disability, like we have a gift to give to the rest of the world because we've already wrestled with this question of what if you can't do something so well? Where's your humanity there, right? And now we as individuals are measuring ourselves up to these chatbots that can do almost anything that we can do quicker, faster, better, right? More research. They don't get tired. They don't get weary. They don't get hungry. They're going to keep going, and we don't. So now I feel like as a society, we're wrestling with this question of is our humanity in our achievement? And we're finding that it's not. And is our humanity and our ability to do something independently? No, it's not. Again, right? There's so much about my faith that has taught me about interdependence, right? And it's hard. I'd rather be able to do it myself. I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to be the person that receives. But because of my child with this disability, it's become very clear to me that one, I have to, right? Like I can't do it all as a caregiver. Like you're exhausted, you're limited, you're finite, your resources run out, you need help, you need respite, and you have to wrestle with that in a different way. And it just has made me realize that, like, well, maybe I always did have dependencies that I wasn't aware of, right? Like I'm not alone. And that actually is where the humanity is, right? And that's why the faith space, when it's not welcoming, is so difficult to navigate because that is where you're coming for communion, you're coming for connection. And when you can't find it, especially for your child, ooh, that is a deep, deep wound. And so I feel like a lot of what I do is motivated by the fact that I don't want other mothers who are in my position to also have that wound of the faith space not being welcoming, right? I mean, there's so much that comes into being a special needs parent. To add that on top of it is something I just didn't want other moms to experience. And it's hard because they will, you do the best you can, but it's going to continue to be a struggle. But again, that interdependency and realizing that is what makes us human. It's not that we can do things independently, it's that we're interdependent, and our kids with disabilities make us see that.
Also, I can, for me, it was more of a struggle at a cultural level. The faith, and I guess all faiths are inclusive. They have the same values around the world. When you see that faiths are inclusive, and Sikhism is very new. It's one of the newest religion in the world, only about 500 plus years old. And yeah, our holiest shrine, Darbar Sahib, it have 4 doors. So it's a symbolic that anybody can come here. Anybody is welcome, irrelevant of your skin, race, disability. Anybody can come there, pray, And we have a concept of langar, which is food that they don't charge for, and anybody who's hungry, who's needy, can just walk in there and get food. So it's very inclusive. The struggle for my community and myself and my family and families like me was more bringing those faith values to to actually to the cultural level, at the culture values and the way the societies are built are different than what the faith is saying. So the direction from the faith is not being implemented. That's what I found. And that's where we started to bring that out. And I have done some presentations in Toronto where I was talking about this, and there were people from other faith, and they came up to me afterwards, and they were also from India. And they said, we have similar issues at our place of worship. So faith is inclusive, but what I found, and this was one of the gaps identified in our research, that the place of worship, which is the Gurdwara, that's where we go to pray, can play a big role. It's almost like, you go to a place of worship to heal, to seek peace, but then there are obstacles and barriers to get there for a autistic individual. It's very, very similar to, you know, having a wheelchair ramp. So that was not part of the Gurdwara codes when I first came to Canada. Now I see there are wheelchair ramps everywhere. So they acknowledged it, they found a gap, they acknowledged it, and they worked it. But neurodiversity is invisible. It's not seen. It's not that the faith leaders don't want to accommodate them. Nobody have started the conversation, and they have not thought about it, or there's not enough awareness. And what this research did for us, because it identified that a big gap right there in our face, that we are not able to go practice our faith at the place of worship with our children who are autistic or who may have a tantrum there, the management there or the priest there, they don't know how to respond to that. There's no sensory rooms and all that. So what this research did is brought that out. And this was research across Canada. So we have parents across Canada, all the caregivers. So what we did is, some months ago, actually last year, I believe, end of last year, we have initiated conversations with the various place of worships in Ontario, and we have done presentations to them what autism is, what neurodiversity is, what are the needs, how you can identify the need for training for the staff at the place of worship. So that is something we initiated, and we are trying to get one Gurdwara as a pilot project so that we can create that sensory room. We can educate the people who come there to attend, who come there to pray. It does not matter if they have a child or an adult in the family who have a diagnosis or not, but overall understanding. And that has been a very positive outcome out of that research. Actually, a few days ago, we were chatting about it, and we are hoping to create one pilot and as an example, and take that example across Canada, across Ontario, to see how we can make the place of worship, the Gurdwara, more inclusive, more accommodating for people who are autistic, maybe neurodiversity, or anyone who needs that accommodation. So that was a very, very positive outcome. And going back to my original point, the faith is inclusive. And what I'm finding is it is the cultural stigma, taboo around having that conversation, that's the obstacle, and that's what we're trying to break using the faith values.
Baljeet, I wrote that down. I wrote that down when you said it's the faith versus the culture, because I feel like that's something we're all sharing, right? And we know what our faith teaches, but that's not even what we're not up against that, right? That is our anchor. That's what we hold on to. But the thing that we're working against is the culture. And culturally, you find, the difficulty. And I think that's normal, right? We're humans, we're going to make mistakes, we're flawed. Like that's also universal in our cultures, right? Like y'all are flawed.
Yeah.
That's just something that we all share as well. But I think, there is amazing resources. And actually I will maybe chat with you offline about this, but in our diocese, we have a sensory mass, and they identified the same need. These are, our families that are neurodivergent, that kids have disabilities, don't have a place where they feel welcome when they worship because the kid has an outburst, someone has a meltdown. They need lower lighting, they need a quicker service, whatever the need is. And so we have once a month at Nativity Parish in Arlington or Fairfax, Virginia, they come, and the entire mass is advertised as a sensory mass. And people come and they have the supports they need and they're accommodated. And people come for community, and it's only once a month. And we're supposed to go every week. We're supposed to go every Sunday, but that sensory mass is offered at least once a month for these families to know, if your kid has a meltdown, we have a sensory room, we have fidgets, we have things for you, we have things for you to follow along with the mass. So in these cross-cultural resources, it's been created, right? We have something like this in our Catholic faith. And I would imagine, Gabrielle, you have as well.
Karen, I'm like so happy you brought that in, because I feel like exactly, Baljeet, like this is what Tom does, and this amazing organization that we can take the best practices and experiences. Like I can give you a list of what to have in the sensory room. I'm sure Carmen can too. But that was, you touched on something which was about like, wait, the priest doesn't have the education. I feel like even as a mother, even with friends who had kids with disabilities, is even as an educator, that I did not have the information I needed to understand disability and to check my own ableism, and to just really, I just had a lack of resources. So our clergy, it's, I know in our the denomination of Judaism I'm part of is called Reconstructing Judaism. We're part of the non-Orthodox side of things, and within the rabbinical training, there is a lot of conversation about disability now. A lot of neurodivergent rabbinical students. So this next generation of what the synagogue is going to be different. But right now, one of the things we can do, and when you come to people with education, and it's not like an accusatory, like, you don't know how to run your service, but like, wow, I want to tell you about my family's experience. I want to tell you what was hard. I'm wondering if XYZ might be possible. How we begin all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like you're all very open about it. And, Baljeet and Gabby, your children are, well, they're older, they're young adults now, but I wanted to ask, and Carmen, your son is quite young. Maybe it's easier now. There are a lot more resources. I was wondering, especially Baljeet and Gabby, what services or supports did you have as your kids were growing up that were helpful to you? And then were there other things that you wished had been available? Maybe they're available now. Yeah, so what did you find helpful,
Yeah.
and what more is needed?
From Unfortunately, for South Asian communities, culture, and from the religious infrastructure side, there wasn't much when we started off. And that's when we found or felt that there is a need for a Sikh voice out there. And we started this organization, started talking about it in the media. And I have done many, many presentations, and I always say that, when I originally started, I would look at these, all these TED Talks, podcast, and I couldn't find any South Asian face. Mainstream, we were missing in the mainstream. Nobody was out there. And, and, and that was the issue. But in last 19 years, it has changed. but I can't say that it has changed a lot. There is still reluctancy. There is still obstacles in parents coming out speaking openly about their child's disability. They still don't want to do that. And you know, in place of worship, we haven't moved much. So we are hoping with this new initiative in Canada, at least, we can do better. I know in England there is more work being done in the Sikh community, and even though that is recent, but there is more work that have been initiated, and we are hoping to kind of duplicate and do the same in Canada and spread it out. There is work, but it is not out in your face. It's not openly known. So we want that to be out there. And there is another underlying interconnecting issues is that as I said, I do a lot of presentation. I go to a lot of nonprofit autism organizations. They call me in their meetings, and I go to many schools for last 3, 4, 5 years, and I go into these virtual rooms, and I go into these school classrooms and libraries. Usually 99.9% I'm the only male face there. uh, all the caregivers, educators, people involved with the caregiving are female, and that is something that I have noticed in 7 years, very specifically to the South Asian community. Not picking out the men, they are doing their work, they're doing something in the background, but the heavy lifting is being done by the woman, the mother, the grandmother, the caregiver. 68%, we found 68% of caregivers in our research were female. Even when we did our research, we had really uphill battle convincing male caretakers to come into interviews. It was the mothers who were showing up, and that is also that kind of highlights that there may be uh, issue to look at. Maybe that's why South Asian families are not able to talk openly, because there may be opposite opinion inside the family between the husband and the wife, right? So that was I think that's where people like me and our organizations, other organizations which are working on South Asian communities need to break into and somehow make it more comfortable for the parents to come out and talk about more openly about it. There is just too much stigma attached to it. There's just, and it is very hard to break through it. So I have been working on this for 7 years, and it is a very small difference. Slowly, I can see the difference, but it is very slow. So it is a long way to go yet. So that is what I find the difference between the South Asian faiths and culture compared to rest of the world. And I have worked with some Caribbean families. I have worked with Iranian families. I have worked with the Korean, Chinese. They all have similar issues as South Asians. They tell me the same stories. They don't want to talk about it. And exactly same concerns. And it almost seems certain cultures are very restrictive, very too much stigma around it to actually go out and discuss it openly.
Wow.
Balji, quick follow-up before I want to let Gabby answer, but does your organization, do you run support groups or parent groups or respite for parents? And did you ever participate? It doesn't have to be faith-based, but did you ever participate in, you know, parent groups just for autism when your daughter was growing up? And do you offer that now?
Yeah, so um, sport networks, there are 5 gaps identified in our research. So I will actually quickly name them. Community education, number one, more awareness. There's not enough awareness. And sport networks, inclusive religious spaces, language accessibility, and policy improvements. So number two was sport networks. So that, hey, we need more Punjabi speaking, South Asian language speaking, more tailored to South Asian communities where they can communicate in their own languages that they're comfortable with. So what we did is we launched autism caregivers network last November. Our first meeting, in-person meeting, was held on November 16. After that, we held two virtual meetings because we were trying to accommodate people who cannot come into in person. And we would invite other professionals from the government agencies who are providing support to autistic individuals to come speak to them. And our next one, we are hoping to have another one in October. So we are trying to address the gaps that were identified slowly. And we did started that. I have gone to other organization meetings. For example, Ontario Autism Coalition is a political advocacy group here, very strong. But their main focus is political advocacy. That's all they do, and they're very good at it. So I try to bring my feedback from the South Asian perspective, from the Sikh perspective, into their education committee, and then they do whatever they do and take that to the politicians. So there is a little bit of political advocacy going there, but I do more awareness work with the schools and universities and parents. They deal with the politicians, but I provide my feedback, right? So there is multiple organizations I collaborate with. So our whole work in last 7 years has been collaboration with other organizations, feeding into what they're doing and taking from them what they can give us that we can take back. Right. So it's been great. So I have been working in an organization called One Child in BC. There are people in Calgary, people in Quebec, and multiple organizations here in Ontario where I am.
Well, the Autism Caregiver Network sounds excellent, and we'd like to share. Now, and is that only in person or some, you
So
said,
we switch. We try to do some meetings virtual, so people who can't drive in or they can't find a daycare or a babysitter for their children, but we prefer to do few meetings a year in person, and it is more of the whole purpose is to bring the parents together. They can have, they can drink, they can have a samosa, snacks, chat, it's like a little bit of a social thing because the parents are so busy, they don't have much of a social life. So that in person is on purpose actually. So not just a meeting, but something to come out, connect, share phones, become friends, and they can have play dates for their kids together, right? Because the biggest issue that at least in autism community is that autistic children don't have friends. So this is purposely done where mothers and fathers and parents and caregivers can feel comfortable with each other enough to share information, become friends, and try to bring those children together so they can have friends. So it's all like a hidden agenda there to bring the friends for the children. And that's why we do it in person. We prefer in person, but we always do two or three virtual.
that's great. And Gabby and Carmen, have you either participated in parent support groups or led some kind of groups, or I feel like you have.
Yeah, I'm just like humbled by Paushi. I am humbled by you because going back to what Rebecca said, yeah, I had work to do at my synagogue. I have work to do in my Jewish community. I edit the publication I do because we have work to do. We always do. But there were so many people who came before me in the Jewish community who paved the way. Tom and Rebecca know my amazing colleague Shelley Christensen, who made the connection here. So I'm in awe of you sort of taking this step in. But very briefly about support groups, I realized, Rebecca, when I gave you my bio, it's fairly new. So I didn't update. I have completed training as a spiritual director, and I work with people of all faith and cultural traditions. And one thing, I will be really honest with you, I don't really do well in support groups. I feel like I'm a highly sensitive person, and sometimes it's a little tough for me when people are sharing, and like it's hard for me to make that separation. But spiritual direction is a process of listening and discerning. It's not like someone finishes and you need to say like, well, here, try this thing or this worked for my kids. I just need a quieter way to listen. And so at my synagogue, another parent of a child with disabilities older than George started a spiritual direction circle, and it lasted for 4 years. We would come in the evening and light a candle in the quiet of the sanctuary, and we would each get a question or a time to speak. Sometimes our leader brought a question, and to just kind of witness each other. We might give a response, but not a help. But like the act of witnessing was exactly what I needed. So I had to wait till George was all grown up. And now I'll drop my website in, but it's such an honor to be able to be the one holding that container now. And, you know, Baljeet, I just want to touch on, and Carmen, you may touch on what you talked about between the spouses is very real. And I was determined because like I felt like, you know, it took a lot of work to find my partner, you know, to like find the right match for me. And I was like, this is not going to destroy us. And if something is like, there's like, this will take you down, then that gets me like, no, it won't. So I was like, I am not getting divorced. We are going to come together around this. And my husband had the same. So, you know, it is really hard, and we need more of those spaces where we can talk and listen to each other honestly, because each carries so much extra and so much pain. And there were times when my children were little, when we just even getting a babysitter was so limited. Our finances, we were very broke, even though we were both working so hard because there were like bills not covered by insurance. And so we couldn't afford to go to couples therapy, and we really needed it. So we would read books together. We would read books together, each a chapter a week. And on Sunday night, when everyone was asleep, we would sit and do the exercises for couples in the workbook. And I will tell you that changed my life and my marriage. I'm so grateful we did that.
And it's so beautiful to hear both of these things. And Baji, you're building the groundwork, right? It looks like Rebecca and I both walked into a world where some of it was already laid, right? So you're making the path so much smoother for everyone else afterwards. And there is, you will see the fruit of this, I know. I'm thinking now, something that both of you said, the way we respond and the way that we get support each as individuals is so different, right? Like for myself, I feel like even at different times, like there's times that I wanted the support group, right? I wanted to find the spaces. And, you know, when my son was first born, I also didn't want to talk to anybody about it. Like I did not want to go to the support group. I did not want to talk to anybody. You know, I just maybe wanted like that one connection, that one friend. And I remember my sister, whose son, or a few years earlier, had been diagnosed with epilepsy. She told me, you know, go on social media and find the people like you and start following those accounts. That really helped me. And, you know, for all the evil of social media, and I am currently not on it, full disclosure, at that time when I wasn't ready to talk to people, that was a great space for me to see other people like myself navigating. And there were the people who got divorced, you know, and who had these things. And so I was able to see examples that I didn't want and examples that I did want. But it really opened up like a variety of ways of being and ways of responding that kind of gave me a lot of freedom. And I remember one of the accounts I found was called The Lucky Few. And it was, I'm blanking on her name right now, but it's a wonderful account for a mom who adopted two kids with Down syndrome. So she did choose this life that I, you know, was given. And, you know, she had this whole way of looking at it that, you know, not everybody gets a kid with Down syndrome. And if you do get one, like you're really lucky. And because it gives you this, like, you're now part of this exclusive group. So as much as we are about inclusivity, right? Like there's something about like being part of a group and identifying with people who are similar to you, right? So that finding that account gave me the language to talk to my own kids, because I was looking at different things and I had the medical model, like he's sick. Well, he's not sick, you know, he just has Down syndrome, and that comes with, you know, maybe a heart problem, maybe something else, but that's not who he is. He's not sick. He has this other condition. And so I didn't want to use the medical model to talk to my kids. And I didn't want to say the world is against your brother and nobody like, people don't like people with disabilities. So we have, so the social model of disability wasn't available to me. And, in this framing from this other mom that I never met who lives in Heather Avis, that's her name, Heather Avis of A Lucky Few. It gave me a language to talk to my kids about it. And I think that's what these support groups do, whether they're virtual, whether they're in person, right? We have to find the space that feeds us when we need it. And it's going to change, right? Like there's groups that I initially was a part of, like a new parent Down syndrome group. And that was really nourishing at the time because I wanted to see other people like me, and it was a safe place to talk about my questions. And then you get busy and you need other things. You need school groups, you need that. So these conversations are important because we're going to need so many different support groups at different stages of our lives, right? Like when you're in school, you need a school-based support group or something where you can talk about that experience. So another thing that actually, Baji and Gabby, I don't know if you've encountered this, we have a WhatsApp group of local Down syndrome moms in our area, and people, that is just such a space of generosity and kindness. And you can vent, people know what you mean, and you can ask about an eye doctor and someone will give you, you'll get 3 or 4 recommendations, and you don't have to do the deep dive yourself. And if you've already done it, you want to share that with somebody else and you have a forum. So it's wonderful how many different spaces there can be once you start looking. And just knowing that you're going to need different things at different time, I think gives you permission to either join the support group or not join the support group, to found the support group, or just find one other person who's in the same boat, and you at least have that one other person that you can talk to. It doesn't have to be starting a group, but it can be finding something that exists and just plugging in.
Yeah, the WhatsApp groups have been very, very good. Actually, we have the same here, the local parents, and they're sharing who's a good therapist, who's a good doctor, where diet, they talk about diet, what worked for us, what can work for you. So it's a lot of information you get firsthand from the parents who have tried it out.
Yeah, I'm old, so it's Facebook. It was before WhatsApp was hot, Carmen. But we have one like here in the greater Philadelphia area that's actually not faith-based. It's just a parent-based, and same. People share resources and also come on there when they are at a loss of faith. And people have come to write really hard things. It's beautiful to have that.
Yeah, it seems like when I am viewing for posting about our programs, so many parents groups and specific faith-based groups, and maybe people are even more comfortable when it's online in some way. I'm wondering because for different reasons they feel more comfortable to share. Um, and then also later, if you have, podcasts or specific, I know Carmen, you mentioned social media accounts or influencers or books. I know next week we have a Christian couple that wrote a book about special needs parenting. So if you have books or podcasts or other resources to recommend, we would love to gather those and share them for sure. I did want to ask about, what has been your biggest challenge, and then also what do you feel has been like the biggest progress or, something that you've had to, work through. I don't want to say a success, but what was an example of like a real, I know Gabby, you shared about stress in your family or your marriage or, financial, like those are real, issues. I don't know that people are always, open about it. So, it would be great to hear, what is the reality, like what is the challenging reality of being a
Yeah.
special needs parent, and how did you deal with it?
Well,
Like,
I'll jump in on that financial really briefly. I mean, Carmen, what you said about interdependence is the truth. And I think again, I'm just going to go to the United States since it's where I've grown up. But, the culture of the myths of, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and people do it on their own. It's a very dangerous myth because it's not how humanity is. And so, yeah, the financial thing was very hard for us because I was always trying to get like that doctor or the thing or like I wanted to put whatever I could. It was hard to save. It was hard to, I live in an old house that we never got to fix up. I'll never live in my dream home. And guess what? Who cares? It is my dream home because love lives there. But I got good at explaining on forms for my children about a program, like a trip, um, a camp, a something. It would look like my husband and my income bracket was here, and so we couldn't get any scholarship. So, I'm a writer, so I would write out, this is right. We're here, and you won't give us a scholarship in that income bracket. But I want you to understand how much it costs buying my insulin pump supplies, paying for this therapist, buying this special food for my child, all these things. And I'm asking you if you could consider the disabilities in our family. And if there's a scholarship that my kid can join. That was a hard, hard, hard one. And once I got good at it, now it's like, nah, I'll ask.
Yeah, yeah. So I see there's a question about mental health as well. So, there is always a challenge to deal with your own mental health, your own well-being. But then you also have to work with the child or the adult for their mental health and what they are going through. So you're working on that as well. So those challenges are always there. And we have focused every year. We pick a topic or a area, so we focus on that. So there is, in at least in autistic world and autism community, there's a lot of talk about individuals who are impacted with autism, but there is, almost very little talk about the caregiver. So last year and a year before, we focused on caregiving. So we prepared a presentation on how to self-care for caregivers. So that was the presentation. So we did that presentation at multiple locations with the parents. I took it to my work. They had a mental health week and all that. So I take it to my workplace whenever they want me to do it. I do that. Uh, how to self-care for yourself. If I'm not healthy mentally and physically, I cannot take care of my child. And that is important. So it is important for the caregiver to be well so that they can take care of anybody they need to take care of, right? And there are a lot of other challenges. I mean, there is a stress, there is a change of work schedule, loss of income, because not necessarily both parents can work full time. That is a huge impact. That is economical impact. It impacts to your family's generational wealth, which is being transferred. We never really look at that. Your children who are not diagnosed are impacted indirectly because you are not able to do certain things that you may be able to do. So, like I don't want to put a negative tone to it, but there is these issues which have a wider impact, but most of the time that is missed. We have done some work on the sibling side. So my elder daughter, she's just finishing up her master's, and she have done some videos. She did a radio interview, ethnic radio in California, and she was on a panel like this where they brought in all the siblings of autistic individuals, and they wanted to know how their life is, how they are impacted, um, what are they doing. So uh, if you have an elder sibling, that is even better. The impact is really amazing because my elder daughter sometimes play the role of parent. things that we are not able to get done, my younger daughter would listen to my elder daughter more than she would listen to me. Obviously the age gap and all that. So there is a sibling pot that we, through our organization, try to address as much we can with the limited resources. But that is a issue out there. The siblings are impacted, the parents are impacted, the family generational wealth is impacted. When can you retire? That is impacted. Financially speaking, can you afford to retire? Are you able to save enough? Those all come in play. But there are some positive parts. I think I am a better parent because of my autistic child, because I would have never learned all these parenting strategies that I have learned now. That is kind of a life skill now. I implement that everywhere I go. I'm a manager. I have a team, very young people in my team. I can now relate to that younger generation because of my young daughter. I am able to connect with all this K-pop, for example, right? I would have never connected to that, listened to that, understood it. I have learned so much about pop culture. I have learned so much stuff that a young person will do. And when I walk into situations where I'm dealing with younger people, I am better at it. I'm not 100% good, but I'm better at it because I have knowledge about it and I can have a conversation about it with somebody, right? And it helps me at my work. It helps me when I go do my speeches and deliver my remarks at an event, when I'm communicating one-on-one with the younger people. When I go to the school open houses, it's not only the caregivers are coming there. There are young adults from the school or people pursuing education in life sciences or in neuroscience for universities. They come see me, right? Oh, they want to know what kind of things I'm dealing with, and should they go into that career? Should they, they try to get advice from me. So all that is a positive side of um, being a parent of an autistic child. And so much I have learned. I'm self-aware now of so many things which I would have never done. I would have never bothered, right? If my daughter wasn't autistic, right? So there is a lot to learn. So what I have done is taken it as an opportunity to self-grow myself. How can my growth can come out by learning from my daughter? And usually it's the parent teaching the daughter, but I use every opportunity to listen and then match it with my understanding and identify the gap and see how I can fix that. So it's been both sides. There is stresses and things that you need to manage, but there are positive side of all that as well.
I would 100% agree, Baji, that there is that load, right? That we're walking around with a load that's
Yeah.
very, quantifiably heavier in
Yeah.
some cases, right? And we don't always know what other people are carrying, right? So it's not like we can look at someone, see their, 4 neurotypical kids and be like, you have it easier than me, right? Like we have no idea what that person's load is, but we do know our own load, and it is all the things that you said that are more. They are the generational wealth, the siblings, everything. But I think too, like there's that framing, and it looks like you're doing the framing of your own life in a way that you're going to look at the positive. You're going to look at how it helps you grow, and I have, similar concerns for my children, right? Like I'm not able to give them all the time because their youngest sibling requires more attention and I have to do those things. And so I do, like, I worry about it and I struggle with it a lot of times. Like, am I equitably distributing my time? The answer is no. So what are the effects of that? And I, wrestle with what that is. But then, I see beautiful moments. Like yesterday, we went to get a haircut for all 4 boys. School starts on Monday, people. So we needed to shave those little sheep. And we're sitting at the barber, which is the source of stress for my son with Down syndrome. And his brother was modeling and pretending to have a buzzer and saying, put your hands on your thighs, just sit quietly, just like that. Here comes, and buzzing, pretending to buzz his hair. And he had the best haircut of his life. And, I think that for my son, what a moment where he was able to teach his younger brother. He was able to make the experience beautiful for him. There was another man in the barber chair who then talked to us and opened up about his experience with his son, who by all accounts would be neurotypical. And we find out that he's been hospitalized for, ADHD outbursts, things that he needed, something that he can't talk about with other people. And he said, where do I find help? And so this beautiful moment where we're just getting a haircut, right? This is something that our families, and it's a family thing, right? Baljeet and Gabrielle, like, this is a family thing. It doesn't just happen to an individual. It doesn't just happen to us. It happens to our family. But our family was able to be this beautiful locus of care and light in our community, just getting haircuts. This man was able to find community that he didn't think that he had before. And so I just think that in the struggle, our families are beacons of a different way of being, that our forced interdependence, our forced, acknowledgement of our frailty can be a light for other people that are struggling.
Yeah.
Herman, I just had so many moments with George that were like that, and I think all the folks are. I know we're coming to the close of our time. I'm gonna touch on something generational that what you said, I think hit me about. It's a whole family thing. I feel like I was when Georgie was going through his diagnosis, I had a lot of pain about talking to my mom and dad about it because there's so much shame, in our culture about disability that as a daughter, it's hard to talk about. I felt like I was letting them down, which is completely insane. But like I carried that into the beginning. And my mom has passed away, but my dad is 89. And like you could not see a grandfather more beautiful than my dad with my grandchildren. There's nothing. And it is. And it's also true that you may have family members who aren't great. And then you can deal with that as you would, because you have to take care of yourself and your core family. And we also built a lot of chosen family around us with other families who get it. And that's been part of our survival.
Yeah, like I want to add quickly, like we talked about issues and not stigma and all that. Sometimes the stress is not, how we're going to do certain things. Sometimes the stress is when children with the disability, especially with the autism, ADHD, they're in public. The stress is how the people in the community will react to their tantrums or their actions, not understanding what exactly is happening. And that is another thing that we have been throwing around, that we talk to caregivers, we talk about caregivers, we talk about people with disabilities and diagnoses, but what about educating the community and the families who do not have children or family members with that diagnosis, who simply do not understand what a disability does to a family? So how do you tap into that part of the community and educate them and bring their awareness level up, that they are able to better react in a situation where things are not going as they should, instead of judging the individual or their parents and not able to respond properly. So I think that is another stress when you go out in community. You're worried how the people will react, and going to the park, your daughter does something and the other families react, and then you have to go out of that situation. That also needs to be changed, because I do a lot of radio shows, and the purpose going to the radio is not just talk to the caregivers, but the actual purpose is to talk to the people who are not caregivers, that this is happening and you also need to know, because if you don't know, then the community cannot be inclusive. Eh, People think that I don't have a family member with a diagnosis, that means I'm not impacted. And I tell them, hey, your tax money is being used for all the services. You are impacted, and I very fast get their attention. So that if you are not part of this, plan, you're going to be left out and you are impacted one way or the other. So it is better financially, economically, culturally, socially, if we are all working together on this. This is everybody's issue, not just that one family's. If we want inclusive communities, that's what need to be done.
Amen.
That
I couldn't agree more. And in part, that's why my focus is on education and making our schools inclusive places, because our schools are mirrors of culture, right? And our public schools do a much better job of this than our religious schools. And I think, there's a reality of resources and constraints, but at the bottom line, we need to be forming the civic imagination that a person with disability is a citizen, is a person that should fully participate, and that we all have a responsibility. When our kids see this in schools, then they can replicate it out in the world. They need to see it. They need to see it in our faith spaces, because those are also civic organizations that form imagination. They need to see what it looks like when somebody has a meltdown at church, or any religious place. They need to see what that looks like, and then they need to see the proper response. And so once they see that a few times, it starts to become a different cultural imagination about what we can do with a person with disability. So it is a long road. I definitely see a change, though. And it's interesting because it's an ever-present problem, right? For all the advances in ADA and the legal protections that we've got, at the end of the day, we have to change hearts and minds, and it has to be more than the law, right? Like, you can have the ramp, but if it's an ugly ramp, is it really the best ramp it could be? Like, I'll take the ramp, any kind of ramp, but like, let's imagine the ramp as an integral part of the space and not this add-on, right? Because we want all the community members there and we want to support them. So yes, agreed, 100%.
And I think this reality, Carmen, right, that each of us, if you don't have a disability today, that means for today. And each of us is an injury or an accident or an illness away from needing these supports.
We're really building it for ourselves.
Totally. And I'm like my friends, I'm in the peer group where my friends are becoming grandparents. And so also that, like, maybe your child was neurotypical,
right?
And you don't know what's ahead,
I know that what you were talking about, that's such a common issue that we've heard, across all the faith traditions, that people feel uncomfortable sometimes bringing their family members into the faith community if because of the reactions of other people. But it sounds like, well, Carmen, you said, and I think Gabby, you've done this too, creating sensory, environments, or, adapting. But again, it does come from education and the leadership. So, is since this is a forum for that, is there something else that you'd like to share to educate people about either the specific, issues of your own child or other people in your communities? Is there something you would like people to understand, whether it's as a parent or just about disability in general, that people may not know or they may not be comfortable to ask?
I have one thing, and I've spoken about it before too. Most community members don't understand that a special needs parent do not get to switch off. They are continuously on it. Other parents can, put their kids to sleep, or they know, okay, I have done this. I am free to now go watch TV, or watch my show, or go for a movies, or go for a walk. It's not necessarily the same for a caregiver and a special needs parents. You're always on. Every morning you start and you're going to the same battles for life. Other parents will, end that at some point, but this is ongoing, and you're not able to switch off. And I think a big part of community maybe do not see that, do not understand that. And I wish, they understood, and we are able to take that to them, that this is what the situation is.
And I think I would just say, in terms of what's helpful for people learning, I think there's so many different modalities available to us. Like we've had film nights because there's so many powerful films. I think some people at this network are aware of a beautiful movie that was filmed, a documentary at my synagogue, Carmen, about a young man with Down syndrome. It's called Praying with Lior, about his process of becoming bar mitzvah. So we've had film nights. We've had Shelley, my colleague, amazing colleague Shelley, who I talked about in Jewish Disability Awareness and Inclusion Month, would select a book. Like, okay, maybe you're not touched by this, but like, let's have a book night. Everyone read this on your own, and something where it touches on disability. And it could be on Zoom, it doesn't have to be in person. But I think, and there are a lot of, as you talked about, Carmen, both parents on social media, there are a lot of disability self-advocates who are out there. So I think within your faith community, create a lot of different ways that people can learn about disability. That has been effective for our community. I have really seen that.
And Carmen, I know you also educate as well. So is there anything that you'd like to let people know? I mean, there's obviously a lot, but
Yeah, I mean, I would say as a teacher, the education for myself about different ways to reach my students has been really important. And also just giving myself permission as well to like drill down to what's the most important thing in the lesson, what's that core that I need to convey, right? Because we're doing a lot as educators, we're doing a lot as parents, and a lot of times I think we can get overwhelmed by like all the things that we need to be thinking about and doing. And is the lesson about writing each letter perfectly? Is the lesson about sitting still in your seat? Is the lesson about sometimes it is that, yes, sometimes that is the lesson. But if the lesson is actually like, what does this Bible story say? Like, can the kid be rocking and swinging in a chair while they're processing that? Yes, they can. Do they need to write down a perfect sentence in a paragraph, or can they convey it in a different way? I had my students look at a picture, a Christmas like nativity scene, with the baby Jesus. And one of the kids responded by drawing the same picture, but instead of the baby Jesus in the middle, he drew like a fire. And the different people around it were warming their hands by this fire. And I just thought, what a profound image. And it showed a depth of understanding that he didn't say in words. And there it was, so just being really open to, I guess, opening your eyes to thinking of different ways that people are communicating with you, and especially our kids with disabilities, like they can have that depth of understanding and experience, and it might not come through the way that we're used to, but learning to see and recognize that it can come through in a different way. That would be my takeaway.
that's great. Tom, I wanted to turn it to you because I think we might have a question or two. We just had a great discussion, though. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you all for your responses and for your sharing. And it's your story needs to be told. And as you talked about it, the relationships are the most important thing because of some of the isolation that you experience as a parent, and and as we think about changing some of what's in our faith communities, and encourage more acceptance, sharing that story is going to be important for each of you. And for example, I taught special ed for 25 years and never even thought about it from the perspective of a parent. And your story is important because many people just are not aware of what you go through, the 24/7 life that you live, and the stress that you're always under. And so uh, people need to know what that's like so that they have a better understanding. And telling that story to the community as well, it is so important. I'd also encourage you to take care of yourself. And I know that's a hard thing to do, but for parents out there, I kind of started a nonprofit that just focused on parents and families, and It's hard to do. It's hard to put yourself first, but your mental health is important. And so hopefully there are other places out there that can care for you as a parent and give you opportunities to share with one another and connect with other parents who really get it and understand what you're going through. So you've kind of inspired me and reminded me a lot of the issues that parents go through and the challenges that you face. And so thank you for sharing that with us. And more needs to be done on the parent side of this and how we can support you not only in the community, but in our faith communities as well. So thank you for being here. And for those of you that are still on the call, we will, on Thursday, Bill Gaventa will be talking about preaching disability. And it's a guide for pastors, but it's more than just a Christian focus on preaching disability. It's really a focus on how we talk about disability in our faith communities and in our community. And so he'll be talking on Thursday at 12 o'clock Central Time. If you'd like to, I'd encourage anybody from any faith to attend that, because I have had the privilege of reading his book and previewing it, and it's very, very good. So Thursday is Preaching Disability with Bill Gaventa. Next Tuesday, we'll continue our focus on parents as we talk with Cindy and Joe Farini, the authors of The Special Needs Parent, A Guide to the Life You Never Expected. And as you mentioned before, this is not the journey that you chose, but it's a journey that you're on. And so sometimes that takes some getting used to. So we'll be talking about Cindy and Joe, and they have an adult with a disability that they take care of. So they'll be sharing their insights on next Tuesday, August 29th. So I would encourage you to register for that, and we'll be sending out more information as well. Until then, thank you again for participating and sharing parts of your life and your faith with us today. Carmen, Baljeet, Gabrielle, appreciate you being here. And may God bless you all in the work that you're doing and the parenting that you're doing and in your faith communities where you are. Take care now.
Thank you. Thank you.